Thank you for listening to this Belly Up Sports Podcast Network product. Some said we go belly up, so we made it our name, and we're still here.
All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Beyond Half Court podcast. I'm Alex, and this is episode number 11. We're going to keep it rolling here for episode number 11. Thank you guys so much for, sticking around. This is really a lot of fun to me, so I appreciate everyone's support, especially on my other channel. We just hit 50 subs, so even though that's a very small number in the grand scheme of things, it definitely keeps me motivated to keep posting content. So if you guys haven't already, you guys should go sub to my Beyond Half Court channel. That's where I'm mainly posting. This is more of like a secondary channel. So I'm really trying to take over on that other channel. So if you want more of me, go to that channel as well. My 3 recent videos since we uploaded, I have the 5 biggest overreactions of the NBA season, the 5 biggest surprises of the NBA season, and then I also discussed the Steve Nash firing and whether he was a good coach for them or not, and kind of discuss the future of the Nets, head coaching and just the team in general as the season goes on. Because again, we're still very early. So if you're interested in those sorts of videos, go check it out. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be in the Linktree link. And that link should also be somewhere on, the podcast episode description if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, whatever. What else? Follow me on Twitter, follow me on TikTok. All that stuff is also in those links as well. The Twitter, it's going to be in this corner when I'm recording. It's in the other corner, but right now, my that's my Twitter @. But if you want my TikTok, it's @BeyondHalfCourt. That's it. So follow me over there because I'm trying to post regularly, especially on TikTok. All my TikToks also get re-uploaded to YouTube as well. I'm going to start doing that. So if you don't have TikTok and you would rather just watch what I post on YouTube, another reason why you should go sub to my other YouTube channel. But with that out of the way, again, we're at this 2-minute intros. Don't know if those are, I think it's pretty quick. But with that out of the way, let's get started. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about was this Nets situation. Now, this Nets situation is kind of nasty. A lot of things are going on right now. Again, Steve Nash got fired. I talked about it in my other video on the Beyond Half Court channel. So again, follow me over there if you haven't already. But Steve Nash is gone. And if you ask me, it's been a while since he really should have been fired for. He should have been fired sometime last season. It was obvious that he was not a good X's and O coach. Really ISO heavy, very predictable offense. It definitely works out great when you have guys like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on your team. You're able to do that. But in the grand scheme of things, once you get to the playoffs, that offense is just too predictable. And especially in the East, there's some really great defenses like the Bucks, the Celtics, and even the Sixers to a certain degree. I don't think they're as good as those, the Bucks or the Celtics, but they're definitely a solid defensive team, and that's just not going to fly with them. And defensively, the Nets sucked as well. And that's the one thing that I will side with Nash is that even if he was a good defensive coach, which he isn't, because especially there's one game in particular that just should show everyone why he was such a bad coach. It was that they were playing the Mavericks and they kept switching Patty Mills as the primary defender for Luka. It just didn't work. But yeah, so even if he was a good coach on the defensive end, I do not think he would have been able to coach this Nets team defensively because there just isn't enough defensive personnel. So a big reason the Nets are even looking at someone like Ime Udoka is because he was able to turn around, the Celtics defense last season. And now with him pretty much going to be done with the Celtics as far as we're aware, he's probably going to go to the Nets. But I do want to talk about that in just a second because there's a thought that came into my head. But I also want to talk about this Kyrie situation because, he posted on Twitter some sort of anti-Semitic movie, I believe. It was a movie, and I think it was also a book, or it was based off a book. I honestly didn't really bother to see what that movie was about. I think a lot of people were just in agreement that there was, stuff that was fabricated, not true at all. So I'm going to agree with most people. It's a huge thing. I'm going to believe what people are saying on the internet. You can blame me for not doing my due diligence, but just in general, with that whole Kyrie thing, I was thinking, why isn't it Kyrie getting, um, what's the word, punished for what he was doing, because he kept going into these press conferences and the reporters were setting him up not to like give a bad answer, but they were trying to make him like apologize. They're trying to get to the point where he'd be like, you know what? I'm not anti Semitic and I apologize for the comments I made because they are harmful. But he just wasn't doing that. And I was thinking, like, when is this going to happen? And as soon as I thought that, they hit Kyrie with a 5 game suspension without pay. Um, so I thought that was kind of funny. It was perfect timing, but it makes sense, especially when you think back to the Myers Leonard situation. I believe either it was a season or two ago. I forget. It's time goes by so fast that like sometimes it feels like it happened just yesterday, but it really happened 2 years ago. So I don't actually remember what year it was, but it was fair. It was still fairly recently, a year or two ago. He pretty much got, shadow banned from the NBA. And granted, he wasn't really that great anyway. He was mostly a role player anyway, so he was probably he was probably on his way out of the league anyway. Um, but with someone like Kyrie, like he's only 30 years old, like he still has a lot of playing time left. So it was going to be very interesting to see how they would even, handle that Kyrie situation. It seems that they went with the 5 game suspension, and he's not actually able to come back until he, does a list of things that the Nets want him to do, like apologizing, that sort of stuff. And, I think that's going to happen because I think Kyrie does want to play basketball and he just wants to get this whole thing over with. But this whole thing, the Nets are just a mess. They've always been a mess, and I expected them to be a mess. Again, I made a video about it on my other channel, Beyond Half Court. But I never believed that the Nets were going to be able to figure it out, because in the past year or two, they just haven't been able to do that in general, mainly because of injuries. But now it's to the point where just the roster construction is just so bad. There's no defense, and there's really not a lot of depth on this team as well. Ben Simmons is also experiencing some, health concerns. He's got a back and knee problem. Seems like he actually may be coming sooner rather than later back into that lineup, but it's still a concern just long term. And even in the minutes that he has played, he hasn't been as good as he was 2 seasons ago. A big reason why I thought Ben Simmons could definitely be a potential good piece for the Nets is because he was second place in Defensive Player of the Year, the actual last full season that he played. So I felt that if he came back with that same, skill level, that he was going to do a lot of great things for the Nets. But because of the injuries, and he's also been fouling out of games, he fouled out of 2 games, I believe. That's also like a big problem with him as well. He just had that same impact. And when you take everything else into account, with Nash being fired and now having to find a coach, and then the whole Kyrie situation, and even if you think about Ime Udoka coming in, he most certainly will probably improve that team, but he's also bringing baggage to the team as well. All of this is to say is, do we need to start reconsidering Kevin Durant trades? Because, when you think back to when Kevin Durant left the OKC Thunder, and this is when I'm going to bring up the Kevin Durant, when he slipped up on his tweets. He thought he was on his burner account, but he was actually tweeting on his actual Twitter account. Let me read some of these tweets because I think it's kind of damning, the situation that KD is in now, and it's very reminiscent of his situation back when he was in OKC. So here we go. We have, imagine taking Russ off that team. See how bad they were? KD can't win a championship with those cats. Here's another one. So this guy at Cole Cashwell says, at KD Trey, man, I respect the hell out of you, but give me one legitimate reason for leaving OKC other than getting a championship. And Kevin Durant replies, he didn't like the organization or play for Billy Donovan. His roster wasn't good. It was just him and Russ. So the two, common denominators there is it's Kevin Durant, and then it's Russell Westbrook. But in this case with the Nets, it's Kyrie Irving. And when you look at the statistics that the Nets are putting up, it's kind of ridiculous how similar it is to that entire situation with OKC. Right now, Kevin Durant is averaging 32 points on 52% shooting from the field, 34% from three, 94% from the line on almost 10 attempts a game. And Kyrie Irving, virtually 27 points on 45 from the field, 28 from three, not really that great, and 92% from the line. And again, this just looks to me as it's just KD and Kyrie. So who's not to say that Kevin Durant is feeling in this, sort of he's in this sort of similar situation where he just there's not, there is. I guess the one thing is this Nets team is definitely more talented than that OKC team because even though OKC had a lot of athletes and a lot of defenders, the spacing was the biggest issue with that because outside of Kevin Durant, there really wasn't a lot of spacing when you go to look back and even when you consider the timing of that, that roster being good with 3-point shooting becoming a lot better, it still wasn't to the point where it is now. With the Nets team now, there is a lot of spacing, but there's not a lot of versatile defenders, which is kind of where we're at now, right? So we're at a very similar situation where this roster just is not set up well around Kevin Durant, just like that OKC roster. And I don't see why we can't be discussing Kevin Durant trades. And we can look back at the common denominators. We can look at the Celtics. Again, they'll have to, give up Jaylen Brown. That was already one of the rumored trades in the offseason. We can also look at the Raptors with Scotty Barnes. Again, I don't know if the Raptors are going to be wanting to they want to trade Scotty Barnes. I don't know if that's something that they want to do. Something that still is in mind is the Pelicans could potentially trade Brandon Ingram and get Kevin Durant back, and then you have Zion and Kevin Durant on the same team. But honestly, if I'm the Pelicans, that team is so young. I don't know if I want to break up that young core of BI and Zion just yet. I don't think Ingram's going to be as good as Kevin Durant. Not at all, but still, it's a young squad, so you kind of want to keep them together in the long run. And also, when you think about the fact that the Pelicans have the Lakers pick and they could potentially get Victor Wembanyama, I think they're definitely good just staying put where they are now and trying to compete as much as they can and just hope for a really good draft pick from the Lakers. So I don't know if the Pelicans would do it. Denver is also another interesting situation because you could potentially trade Michael Porter Jr. and like Aaron Gordon or something, but I don't know if that's enough for Kevin Durant. Maybe you have to throw Jamal Murray. I don't know if I would personally. And I don't even know if the Nets would want to take Jamal Murray because of the injury. So we'll just have to see about that. But again, we're in a similar situation now as we were in the offseason where it's like Kevin Durant might be traded. And when you really look at who he could be traded for, either the Nets are just going to ask for too much to the point where whatever team is going to be giving up assets like the Celtics, if they give up Jaylen Brown and like two other rotation guys, it's like, are the Celtics going to want to do that? Because then they lose out on their depth. And that's something I think that they have perfect. Like the team constructed now can win a championship. So do they really need Kevin Durant? Is kind of like my whole main point with that. And then also, is a team going to be offering enough for Kevin Durant to the point where when they add Kevin Durant, they're still going to be a really good team and they're not really going to give that much, but the Nets aren't going to accept that. So it's a very interesting situation. I feel like if a trade does happen, it's not going to be a win-win. I think someone is going to end up losing in this situation, at least for the short term. Long term, obviously anything could happen and it always depends on the trade. But when you just think about the short term, I think no matter what, either the Nets are going to lose the trade, they're not going to be able to get enough assets for him just because the situation is so weird, or whatever team trades for Kevin Durant is going to give up so much depth that, yes, they're still contending for a championship, but in the long term, is it really going to set them up for future success? We don't know, again, until a Kevin Durant trade happens, but that's kind of my whole thoughts about the Nets. Just a whole mess, just a big mess, and they're not even playing all that well either. The Nets are only 3-6, which is very similar to the Lakers, who are 2-6, and the Warriors as well, who are 3-7. Just a really weird start to the season, but the Nets in general, I did expect this sort of downfall for them, but this whole Kyrie situation definitely just fast tracked everything for the Nets' failure this season. And with that out of the way, I want to stop talking about the Nets because I'm honestly tired about talking about the Nets. I've made a lot of Nets videos. Obviously I made the Nash video on my other channel, and I also talked about them just in the grand scheme of things as well. Now we're talking about them here. I'm done talking about the Nets. We're going to move on to something a little bit more happy. I want to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers because the Cleveland Cavaliers are a legit threat in the East. I'm ready to say that. I am feeling good about it. We're only, 7, 8 games into the season, but these guys, they have the second best record in the league right behind the Milwaukee Bucks, who haven't lost a game, by the way, without Chris Middleton. That's absolutely insane. But when you look at this Cavs team, uh, Darius Garland missed that first game with that eye injury, and Donovan Mitchell was able to make up all the offense. He's averaging 31 points right now, 7 assists, which I believe is a career high for him, 1.6 steals. That's really great as well. And his shooting splits are 48, 43, and 85. The true shooting for that, what's the true shooting for that? That is 61% true shooting. So he's really efficient right now. Also on the defensive end, you could definitely see a noticeable jump in defense for Donovan Mitchell. That was one thing. If you guys watched the JJ Redick podcast, he had Donovan Mitchell on there, and Donovan Mitchell talked about how much he wishes he actually played defense with the Jazz, especially in that last season that he had. When you look back at that Mavs series, Donovan Mitchell was just getting blown by. And after that, like once Donovan Mitchell got blown by, he really wasn't doing anything to like stay in the play. It's like, oh, someone went by me. Okay, it's over. I'm done. And we'll just move on to the next possession, right? So that kept happening. But there's a lot more effort going on with him. And that effort in turn is just making him a better defensive player. And honestly, defense in general with this Cavs team is what's really keeping them in these games. When you look at all of their like team defensive metrics, they're all, top 10 at least. And if you have a top 10 defense, or even like obviously top 5 defense is great, having one of the best defenses is great, but in general, like with how much offensive power they have on a team, just having a top 10 defense in general is really good, and it shows that you are like a championship caliber contender. Like when you look at all these championship teams like the Warriors last year or the Bucks, like they're always like top 10 in offense and defense, and that's definitely something that the Cavs can potentially do. I believe they're not like a top 10 offense right now, but again, Garland's been out for most of that time, but their defense is definitely one of the best in the league right now. And a lot of that has to do with not only Donovan Mitchell making a jump as well, but just having Evan Mobley and Jared Allen in the paint, just protecting everything. They're really good at contesting threes, and if they're going to run people off the 3-point line, they're going to have to deal with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley in the paint. And it's just been a huge success for the Cavs so far. Do I think that Donovan Mitchell averaging 31 points this season is going to be sustainable? Now, I don't know if it's 31 points. Maybe it's like 28 or 29, but he is shooting some pretty crazy efficiency right now. Again, he's shooting like 43% from 3 on 9 attempts. Do I think that's going to be sustainable? I'm not sure. I don't know if it's 43 again. It might go down to 40. I don't think he's never shot over 40% before. The highest 3-point percentage he has is 38%, and that was 2 seasons ago. But when you look at the playoffs, he has 2 series where he's shooting over 40%. He has one where he shot 9 threes a game, and he shot 51% from 3. And then we have one where he shot 11.5 threes a game in the playoffs, and he shot 43%. So I don't know if it's quite sustainable to that level, but man, it definitely makes it easier for Donovan Mitchell to get his threes off when you have a playmaker like Garland, and when you have these screen setters as well. Donovan Mitchell loves taking 3-point shots off a screen, and Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are great screen setters. So maybe the 3-point efficiency does stay the same, just because of how many different options he has to get those 3-point shots, right? Because when you have the Jazz, like obviously Mike Conley is a good playmaker, but I believe that Darius Garland is better. And obviously Rudy Gobert is a great screen setter, but they were running small ball. So that was really the only guy giving Donovan Mitchell a screen. At least he was the most consistent guy. You just have more options. You have different ways to get 3-point shots off. And I think that definitely benefits Donovan Mitchell. I think this is a great fit. I think another question we had about the Cavs as well was that small forward position. There was a lot of questions about who was going to start there. Is it going to be Cedi Osman? Would it be Okoro? Would it be Karis LeVert? And they've actually been starting Karis LeVert, which I actually think it's a pretty good idea, because yes, having Garland and Donovan Mitchell there is great, but Garland averages about 20 points, but I wouldn't say he's like a pure scorer. I think he's more of like a pass first guy trying to set people up, and then he'll go for his own, But when you have Karis LeVert, who is a score first type of guy, I think having him and Donovan Mitchell is a good fit. And then obviously Darius Garland is there to get them open, and Mobley and Allen are being great lob threats. I think it's a good fit. Obviously, there is concerns about Karis LeVert defense, but again, Mobley and Allen so far have put up a great fight and have really made up for some of those mistakes that Karis LeVert might make. And Donovan Mitchell again has just made significant improvements on the defensive end, in my opinion. So the defense actually isn't as big of a question as I thought it was going to be when we came into the season. I think we were just all assuming that Donovan Mitchell was just going to be who he was, and if he did improve, it was going to be offensively, not defensively. But he's definitely made that defensive jump. Also with the Cavs, the depth is crazy. So right now, one player that comes to mind for the Cavs, Ricky Rubio, he's injured right now, so he hasn't been playing. But when you look at all these other guys that they have coming off their bench, they have Dean Wade. So Dean Wade has actually been starting with Darius Garland being out, but he's averaging 8 points right now, and he's shooting 50% from three on virtually 4 attempts. So that's and he's also a pretty stout defender as well. He's got some size to him. So another just great player for the Cavs. He's 6'9", 228 pounds. So that's just another, great 3-and-D guy for them. Seti Osman, another 3-and-D sort of guy. He's a great 3-point shooter. Kevin Love, he's shooting 43% from three on 6 attempts. 6-man of the year candidate for sure. Who else? Isaac Okoro, again, not the greatest offensive player. His shooting splits are awful, shooting 33% from the field, 0% from three, and he is shooting 100% from the free throw line, but he's also only takes 0.4 a game, so not a big part of his game. But defensively, he's great on that side of the court. Once we get to the playoffs, I don't know how much he's going to play. He will have to improve that 3-point shot for him to, I think, get legitimate minutes. Yeah, Ricky Rubio coming off his bench as well. I would give them a solid, 3 to 4 guys off the bench, and that's great for the Cavs. They have the depth, they have the 3-point shooting. Again, all these players that mostly all these players that I'm listing are above average 3-point shooters or fantastic ones. I'll just read them again. Like Mobley shooting 100% from three. I don't know if that's gonna that's Isaiah Mobley. Wait, what? Evan Mobley has a brother? I actually I actually did not know that. Well, Evan Mobley's brother is shooting 100% from three, so shout out to him. Dean Wade is at 50%, Karis LeVert is at 45, Donovan Mitchell's at 43, Kevin Love's at 43, Darius Garland's at 41, but it is only off 2 games. Seti Osman's at 38. Raul Neto, who has been Ricky Rubio's, that he's a third string, he's shooting 33, not the greatest. And then you look at Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. They're not shooting great, but they're not supposed to be shooting anyway. So I think when Ricky Rubio comes in, I think he'll be shooting around that 33, 34% from three as well. But he definitely brings a lot better playmaking than Neto. But yeah, they have the 3-point shooting, they have the depth, they have the scoring, and they have the defense, and they have the playmaking. So to me, those are like 5 things right there that you need to have to be, some sort of championship caliber team. And that's what the Cavs have. The Cavs are just really surprising me right now. I was predicting them somewhere between like that 6th or 7th seed, but with how bad the Nets are playing right now, and a lot of teams, honestly, in the East haven't really been playing all too great either. The Sixers are not playing all great as well. I could definitely see the Cavs making it to like the 2 or 3 seed. I think the Bucks are going to be that 1 seed just based off how they've played so far. They're 8-0 without Chris Middleton, so we'll see how that holds up. But man, this Cavs team, they're going to get home court advantage. If they don't get the 2nd seed, I think they'll definitely get that 3rd or 4th seed, but home court advantage for this team would be great. And it's actually really fun to see the Cavs actually be good, because this is like the first time they've been good since before, like without LeBron James. Like even when you include LeBron James, it's been a while, but if you just take out all those LeBron years, they haven't been good since the 90s. So it's really great to see a non-LeBron James Cavs team actually perform really well. And the players that they have on this team are just really good. A lot of skilled players, a lot of effort, and I just like the environment of that team. When you watch them play, they're just very fun. It's very relaxed, but they're also competitive. And so I just love the Cavs, man. The Cavs are going to be great, and I hope you guys need to buy into them if you haven't already, for sure. So with the Nets and the Cavs out of the way, I wanted to quickly discuss the Harden injury. So Harden got injured, I believe it's a foot injury, and he's going to be out for a month. And honestly, this is a little sad for the Sixers because the Sixers have not played all too well. The Sixers are currently only 4-6. I was definitely predicting them to be, the second best team in the East just based off record alone. That wouldn't get in there. So kind of what's going wrong with the Sixers currently is I just feel like Doc Rivers is not a good coach. I think definitely, if this season ends up in disappointment again, I think he will definitely be out of the door. But Joel Embiid, at least from the games that I've seen, he hasn't really put in a lot of effort. But this Harden injury is kind of sucks for the Sixers because he was actually like playing how he was supposed to be playing, pre that hamstring injury. He was the leading scorer for a lot of those games. Embiid was also, leading scorer as well for a lot of those games as well. But especially in the beginning of the season, Harden was like, putting up 30 points, 12 assists, that sort of game. So he was definitely looking like his old self, and it looked like he got over that injury hump and he was ready to, take over the season. Um, but now with this foot injury, it kind of just screws over the Sixers. Now they're going to have to rely more on Joel Embiid again, and they're going to have to rely more on Tyrese Maxey. And I think Tyrese Maxey will definitely be a most improved player candidate, especially if Harden's going to miss a lot of time and Maxey just takes over to the point where Sixers start winning games without him. I think Embiid could start seeing some MVP votes as well, but Maxey, I think, should be able to get a lot more touches, and I believe he should be getting more touches than Harden, or at least, getting similar, because that was another problem I had with Doc Rivers was a lot of the time Harden was getting the ball and Maxey was off the ball, but there wasn't really anything happening. It was just mostly Maxey sitting around waiting. And I don't think that's how you're supposed to maximize Maxey. He is a super fast player, and having him stand still does not maximize that speed. Um, I can't believe he was getting played like that. He still is, by the way, but with Harden out, that definitely won't be as much of an occurrence. Do I think the Sixers can survive? Now, should they survive? Yes, they definitely should. They have the talent outside of Harden to be good. Again, Tyrese Maxey is a borderline all-star player in my opinion, and Embiid is supposed to be an MVP caliber player. So you have those two. You should definitely at least be competing. You shouldn't be 4-6. You should definitely have over a 500 record. So, as the season goes on, I should, I'm expecting them to at least improve and start winning games that they should be winning against like bad teams, and they'll probably end up getting over 500, which I think would be a positive for this team. Again, a month is a long time, but it's the beginning of the season, so you can afford to miss a month. Now, if it was later in the season, I would definitely be worried, because you think about the long-term impacts of a foot injury. It definitely, you can't work out. You're going to lose out on conditioning, so you're going to have to be able to play in game shape. So that gives Harden a little bit more time to get back into game shape for playoffs. He'll have a lot of time for that. Because it is, we just started the season. So that the long term, I'm actually not too worried about. But in the short term, I am actually happy. Let me not say that. I'm not happy Harden got injured, but I do think this is a good thing for Maxey because Maxey should be able to get acclimated a little bit more. And I think, a Maxey Embiid duo will definitely help turn around the Sixers season so far because I honestly don't believe they've been playing very great. So hopefully with Harden out, the Sixers can capitalize a little bit more with Maxey. And that's all I really have to say about the Sixers. Haven't really watched a lot of Sixers since the beginning. So the beginning of the season, that is. So we'll see what happens after that. I'll definitely be looking in to see what they're doing now that Harden's out. Man, a lot of talking, a lot of talking. I need to get a water break. Hydration Nation, baby. If you have listened this far, oh my gosh. If you've listened this far, type in Hydration Nation in the comments. I love saying that. At my job, I work with children. I do, sports camp stuff. Whenever I tell them to get water, I scream, it's Hydration Nation, go get some water. And I got a lot of people in Hydration Nation, so that's always fun. So again, type in that Hydration Nation in the comments you have made it this far and you're listening to me drink water and choke on it because I'm trying to quickly drink it. Two more topics for today. We have Giannis as MVP so far. Giannis has definitely impressed. Bucks are 8-0 as I am recording this, and honestly, this is the best situation for the Bucks because Middleton is out, and I honestly didn't think that they were going to be this good. I did think that they were going to be one of the best teams, but going 8-0 is definitely something that's surprising me. Giannis right now is averaging 32 points, almost 33, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, a block and a half. And something that I think is kind of going unnoticed right now is Drew Holiday is actually performing very well on the offensive end. He's averaging 21 points right now on 44, 37, 83 splits, and obviously he's giving great defense. He's also dishing out 7.4 rebounds a game, or sorry, not rebounds, assists, 7.4 assists per game. And that is honestly really good for them. Obviously, I think as Drew gets older, he's only improved as a playmaker. But especially now more than ever, they need the scoring. He's obviously going to be there on defense, but the scoring is something that they need, especially with Middleton out. And he's actually been able to provide that for them. Brook Lopez as well. Looks, it's gonna sound crazy when I say this, but Brook Lopez should definitely be in the Defensive Player of the Year discussion. Currently, right now, he's virtually averaging 3 blocks a game. And just as a player as well, he's averaging 14 points a game, shooting 35% from 3 on 6 attempts, which is pretty good. And I've been really happy with what Brook Lopez has been doing. And again, like the Cavs, the Bucks defense is just really good. Right now, they only give up 102 points per game, which is leading the league in opponents' points. They're just based off of that alone, they have the best defense in the league. They also have a net rating of 11.4, and their defensive rating is 101.5, which is first, which would lead you guys to believe that they are the best defense in the league. And I actually would agree with that. Offensively, they're still struggling without Middleton. They're only their offensive rating is 15th, and they score, they score 113 points per game. You're obviously missing Middleton there. But the defense is what's keeping him in the game, and Giannis and Drew Holiday in those fourth quarters are actually coming in and clutching it up for them. There's been games against the Hawks, and even last night against the Timberwolves, it was close, but then Giannis and Drew Holiday just took over and it was over. And that's all you really need. If you can hold the team long enough for you guys to start rolling on offense, then that's how you win games. And that's definitely what the Bucks have been doing. When I think about other MVP candidates, I think Tatum, Ja Morant, even Donovan Mitchell, I think those guys come into my head as MVP candidates. But man, I think Giannis right now is definitely on pace to win his third MVP. And that's honestly something that I'm also considering as well is, we can say he's MVP now. Let's say they slightly fall off, right? When when Middleton comes back, maybe they lose a couple games and the record doesn't look as pretty as 8-0. Do we start considering other players like Luka or like Tatum or Ja Morant because when you think of players who have 3 MVPs, like you think of Larry Bird, right? Like is Giannis going to be one of those guys who gets 3 MVPs? And honestly, if you ask me, I think he should. He should. He's definitely, on that trajectory. I don't even know if I said it right. I cannot speak today. He's definitely on that path to be a MVP candidate this year, and I think he's definitely on track to be one of the greatest players of all time. When I just think about all-time rankings, he's definitely top 30. I think you can make an argument that he might be top 20, somewhere between 20 and 30. I think you definitely make that argument. But when you just think about everything that he's accomplished so far and what he can accomplish later on, I don't see why not he can't be, one of those players to win 3 MVPs, especially with the stats that he puts up. Like if he's putting up 30, 12, and 5, that's an MVP caliber season. And even if he doesn't win it, I think it's definitely impressive that he's been able to put up stats like that for this long already. And he's only like 28 years old. So I currently have Giannis as my MVP candidate. I think, again, like Ja, Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, I think you can throw those guys in there. But honestly, I'm just gonna brush him aside because to me, Giannis is the best player in the league right now. And on top of those offensive stats and that he's putting up, he's also one of the best defenders in the league. So to me, that's just a solidified MVP candidate player. And I think right now he's definitely number one, and it's kind of a large gap between one and two. Now, who's number two? Maybe who is number two? Would I say it's Luca? I guess Luca is another one as well. The Mavs are currently where are the Mavs at? The Mavs are 5-3. So yeah, maybe Luca is number two. Um, Honestly, I don't think the gap between 1 and 2 is actually that big, especially if Luka. I actually thought the Mavs had a losing record, so haven't really watched a lot of Mavericks games. I have watched a couple. In both of those games, Luka went stupid. It was the one against the Grizzlies where they like blew him out in the first quarter and he had 20 points. And then I watched the one against the Nets where the Nets kept switching Patty Mills on him. But those were the only two. Other than that, I thought they lost every other game. At least just what it felt like on Twitter, at least because I try to watch a lot of basketball, but again, I work, so I miss a couple games, most of the games, honestly. Um, but yeah, maybe the gap between Luka and Giannis isn't that big, but I definitely think it's large enough for me to feel pretty confident about Giannis being number one right now as the MVP candidate. All right. We got the last one that I wanted to talk about, and this one will be fairly quick. I've tried watching Timberwolves game this season, two of them. I watched the one last night against the Bucks, and the other one was against the Suns, I believe. And I gotta say, it is difficult watching the Timberwolves play. I don't know what it is, but I lose interest in watching their games. I've been trying. I've been really, really trying to focus and hone in on this team because it's the one team that made a lot of adjustments just with one player. Like, there's just so many different things that you have to think about with this team, with Rudy Gobert joining. Um, so I've been really trying to hone in, but man, it is just so hard. And the reason why I think it's hard for me to watch is because one, their offense looks really disjointed at times, and defense, there's just a lot of defensive problems. I think the main thing that I want to talk about isn't necessarily Rudy Gobert. I actually think it's Karl Anthony Towns. So at least defensively, Karl Anthony Towns, he's switching from that 5 spot to the 4 spot, and that does take a lot of adjustment. So I don't want to like overreact quite yet, but he just looks completely lost on that side of the ball. And again, it's him switching positions. He's gonna have to guard players he doesn't normally guard. But even just off like pick and rolls, sometimes he just doesn't even know. He doesn't look like he knows what he's supposed to do. So I think it's a difference. There's a difference between like just being slow-footed, but, like, knowing where you need to be, and then, like, just not even knowing at all, right? And to me, like, it just doesn't even look like he knows what he's supposed to do. And to me, that's a huge problem, especially because, Gobert has a lot of problems on defense as well, even though he has a lot of positives to his defense. But if Cat isn't going to be a good defender on the perimeter, he's just going to make Gobert look bad. So to me, Cat has been pretty bad on the defensive end, and offensively as well. I think it's a mixture of Gobert and Cat because Cat is a good spacer. He has been on the 3-point line a little bit more often, but he does still like his post touches, and it's hard to get post touches when you have Gobert on the floor who cannot space the floor at all. So it's just a little bit different. I don't want to completely overreact on the Timberwolves quite yet because again, there is a lot of adjustment to do, and they had a lot of oh my gosh, they had a lot of success last season, and now they just have to completely change it up with Rudy Gobert coming. But they do have a really good coach, so again, I do not want to overreact, but I definitely have not liked the things that I've seen. And again, I haven't liked them to the point where it's boring to watch them. It's really bad to just like study their game when all you're seeing is mistakes and there's like nothing like, oh, this looks kind of cool. I guess one thing that is cool about this Timberwolves team is Cat has like done a really good job at playmaking. I actually want to see his playmaking stats right now because I haven't looked at them. But when you watch the games, he's making some really good passes. He's averaging 5.4 assists right now. That is one assist over his career high. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense that he's averaging 5. I can definitely see it when I'm watching those games. He's definitely improved as a passer. He's making quick decisions. It's not just like him passing it to a wide open guy and it's like a no brainer. He's actually sometimes kind of threading the needle a little bit. So I think that is a positive for the Timberwolves, especially since the spacing isn't all that great. If you can have one of your big guys suck in the defense and then throw it out to a shooter, I think that's definitely a good thing for this Timberwolves team. But in general, they're very boring to watch, in my opinion, and they still have a lot of work to do. Um, I still have concerns, even when some of these flaws get fixed. I still have concerns about Gobert in the playoffs, but in general, I definitely do think that they can figure it out a little bit more than they do now. But we'll just have to wait and see. And that's all I really have to talk about. I did not watch a lot of games, but the teams that I did talk about, those are some teams that I watched and haven't really talked about yet. So, again, hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys like and sub. I'm trying to get to what is my goal for this channel? I'm going to say 30 subs for this channel. I'm trying to get to 30 subs by the end of the year, so make sure you subscribe, please. I need you to subscribe, or else your grandma will get sick. There you go. I'm sorry I had to do that, but you got a sub now. You got a sub now. You want your grandma to be sick? I didn't think so. And again, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, just leave a good review. Make sure you guys follow me on Twitter, stuff like that. Link is somewhere. You can just find it. Or you can just look up Beyond Half Court. Stop being lazy. All right. That's it. Bye-bye.